Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Caliban, Zeitgeister, out May 14th on Century Media Records. This album has 9 tracks, 32 minutes in length, and this is the band's 12th full-length studio album. They are a German metalcore band. Now before we get started with this review, I just want to say that this album is more than just a regular album. This record is really a biography. That's how it's put together, that's how it feels, that's how it sounds. And it all starts with the structure, and it all starts with the opening track, Zeitgeister, an instrumental track that feels at first glance that it's not going anywhere because it doesn't continue into the next track, and it offers some elements that you're really not going to see throughout the record. But when you think about this album and you look at the big picture of this record, it really feels like this song is the opening, is that start of a movie, that cinematic intro that allows you to kind of understand exactly what the movie is going to be about just by listening to the song that they used to introduce the first couple of scenes. That's exactly how this intro works, and that's exactly the purpose that it has in the overall structure of the album. After that intro, you have 7 songs that they've took from previous records. They reworked them, revamped them, changed them, and gave them new life, new meaning on this album. And that's why I say this record is really a biography, because it's not a greatest hits, but it does go back into the vault and bring songs from the past, change them, and almost make them feel like they're brand new tracks. Specifically for those that have never heard of the band or getting introduced with the band, with this album, this will feel like a brand new record. It won't feel as much as a biography, or perhaps that it ties them back with their roots, but for the fans of the band that follow their progression across their previous 11 records, these songs will have a different meaning, will have a different purpose. Then the album closes off with a brand new song, the only brand new song outside of Zeitgeister, that intro, on this album. So there's a sense of having 2 bookends, the beginning and the end, new songs, new tracks, in the middle a little bit of their history, a little bit of everything that they've done throughout their previous records. That's exactly how this album is structured, that's how it's put together. Then the choice of songs is really interesting because it allows the record to be very fluid, very dynamic. It's an album that doesn't move flat across all 9 tracks. It has ups and downs, ebbs and flows within the songs themselves and from track to track. It's just an album that moves really well. And when you look at 32 minutes in length, you blink and the record is gone. It has that feel to it. It just comes at you with a lot of aggression, with a lot of intensity, and it doesn't hold back. It almost gives you no room for breathing throughout the experience of the album, and that is the kind of movement that this record has as far as the structure is concerned, and then how that impacts the overall soundscape on the album. Once you get into that sound, the sound is very rich. It has a lot of depth. It fills in all the gaps. It has that cinematic approach to it. You almost feel like you're in a horror movie and every single scene is you being chased by the killer. That's the kind of the feel that this album offers on a musical side, and how it puts together the soundscape track and track and track again. So I really like that aspect of just never letting go, being absolutely relentless from the get-go, having some pauses within the songs, but not having songs that pause the record. This is very important to create an album that has a lot of fluidity and great playability, and that's exactly what you're going to get from this soundscape. Deeper within soundscape, you have 2 pillars, 2 roots, if you will, that really control the fluidity, control all the mechanisms of the album, and that is the drums and the guitars. I love the sound of the drums, powerful on every single track, creating so much heaviness, really being the spinal cord of the album. I don't think you can have a record like this with this kind of aggression, with this kind of intensity, without the drums being in the forefront and really guiding you in what the tracks are going to be all about, as far as the violence that they carry and the music that they hold. Absolutely phenomenal drum work on this album on every single track. Then you get the guitars, perhaps a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more diverse in style and in approach, but you need that. You need to create some ebbs and flows. When you have a very constant approach and when you have a very uniform approach as far as the drums are concerned, you need something else to change the eyesight of the listener, to change the perception that you have of the record and of the tracks. I really felt that the guitars did that by adding different elements on almost every single track, really giving you different glimpses and really merging well with some of the other elements that the record has to offer, like the keyboards, for example. They're not one of the cornerstones of the album as far as soundscape goes, but they play an important element in order to create that cinematic approach, in order to create that larger-than-life sound that the album holds at every single turn. But the guitars are really the more diverse element that really pushes the direction of this record one way or another. On top of it, you have the vocals. An album that's completely in German, a brand new thing for this band. They've never done that before, and I think that that changes a little bit of how the vocals are perceived, how they come across, and how powerful they are from beginning all the way to the end. I just feel like you can connect a little bit better with the lyrics. You can be a little bit more introspective. You can be a little bit more dynamic. You can have a little bit more of emotion as you put those lyrics to the forefront because you're speaking in your native language. It just gives you a little bit more of an array of choices, of styles, of what you can do. And I think all of that really comes across on this album. It just feels a little bit more angry. It just feels a little bit more connected. It feels like you're getting a deeper part of the band being put into the forefront, and you're allowed to kind of look behind the blinds, behind the curtains, and see a little bit more of who they are as artists and as people, just by having a record in their native language allows them to do that. Overall, this is an album that's going to have different takes depending on where you're coming from. If you're a fan of the band and you follow their career, this is going to be perhaps an interesting record, but at the same time feel maybe a little bit disappointed because it doesn't feel like it's a brand new record, even though the songs are brand new, just with an old skeleton, if you will. So you may be a little bit on the fence if you're a longtime fan of the band, or perhaps you're going to enjoy this retake on some of their old tracks. I just think it's going to be a very polarizing album all around. If you're new to the band, if you're not necessarily as diverse into everything that they've done, this album is going to feel like a brand new record. Like you've never heard these songs before. They're going to sound great, and you're going to definitely dive in head first into what this album is going to have to offer. I just think when you consider all the elements of this record, when you consider that biography approach, greatest hit style, motion as far as the construction of the album and the choice of songs, like I said, it's going to be a polarizing album. Some fans are going to love it. Some fans are going to feel perhaps a little bit cheated, a little bit disappointed. I love the record. I love how it sounds. I love how it's put together. I love the aggression that it has. And I think singing in German really sets this album apart from everything that they've done up until this point. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Trauma. The original track was Arena of Concealment. This song features Matthew of Nasty, and he brings an add-on to this song, really changing the dynamic with a little bit of hip-hop into the mix. It's a very interesting track vocally, and it's a very interesting track musically. It just comes at you with a little bit of an onslaught of power and heaviness. The drums and guitars and vocals working really well together. It's very hard to separate where one ends and where the other one starts. They just really work well as a group, and they provide that aggression together, not necessarily one substituting the other. There are more intense moments that have a lot of power. There are more methodic moments. They still have a lot of power. So it's a song that changes your perception without changing too much in it. And that's one of the interesting elements about this track. It just packs a lot of heaviness. It just gives you different shades of heavy as you start all the way to the finish. Next is Herz, which was originally I Will Never Let You Down, my favorite song on this record. I just love how this song sounds. I love how it feels. I love how it's put together. Slow intro, it builds in, and then you start to move into a more heavy, a more aggressive sound, and then you have some pauses. It's a song that's made up of two different levels. It has peaks and valleys, and they are just worlds apart. One is just pure aggression, pure heaviness, relentless, just coming at you, and then suddenly you hit this break, you hit this pause, allows you to go up for air, it allows you to breathe a little bit before the onslaught comes back again. So it's a song that's very well divided, creating these two different worlds, both of them doing something different in the song, but when you put them together, this track is just absolutely relentless. It's dynamic, it has a lot of life, it changes your perceptions, and you're just in for the ride. This is just an absolute ride from top all the way to the bottom. Last but not least, mine, Inferno, originally My Little Secret. I really enjoyed this track. It's a pounding track. The drums, guitars, and vocals once again working really well together, but I felt that on this specific song, the drums kind of took a step forward. They feel more powerful. They feel more in the forefront. They're leading the charges with the vocals and guitars right behind it, perhaps just a short step behind it. That's how this track feels. That's how it comes across. Very thunderous, almost like a machine gun assault as far as the drum sound is concerned. Relentless from top to bottom. It has three parts, three periods, if you will. The first, very aggressive, a complete onslaught, no pauses, no breaks, just always in your face. Then there's a middle part of the song that becomes a little bit more introspective, a little bit more methodic, still heavy, but a little bit more methodic. It pauses the track a little bit, and then the third part of the song is a mixture of those two worlds. It doesn't go completely pedal to the metal, but it doesn't become introspective 100% either. It just really merges how the song started, that middle piece, and then the end is the complete result of those two worlds coming together in perfect harmony and closing off the song in the best way possible. This is it. This is Caliban with Zeitgeister, out May 14th on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the singles, on the band, on the approach for this album. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.